Open your ears and lube up your butthole. It's time for the What Do We Call It podcast. Now, here's your host. It's Jmann. Welcome to the What Do We Call It podcast. I'm Jmann.
And I'm number 2 fan, Tom.
I like that you did such a good job with that previous one that we're just going to keep steamrolling a batch of new episodes and continue to give you fresh at bats here, Tom.
This is actually kind of fun.
From the local headlines. State lawmakers are discussing a plan to stop suspending the licenses of people who are unable to pay fines for moving violations. Giving examples of stories of a woman that was a waitress, and she got a speeding ticket, and she couldn't pay all of that fine. And then she ran a stop sign. And
How much is a speeding ticket fine anyway? I haven't had a speeding ticket in like 10 years.
I've never had one, so I don't know.
Oh, good for you.
10 years ago, it was more than 10 years ago. 15, 16 years ago, I think it was $85. I was doing $75 and a $55.
Yeah. Well, what really got this girl is the ticket for the stop sign. She couldn't afford to pay the fine, so they suspended her license. And then she was faced with, if I drive, I could get in more trouble. But if I don't drive, I can't go to work and continue to afford food and shelter. So she had to make the unenviable choice to do what a lot of people in her situation do, and that is to continue driving.
Okay, yeah, I know that a lot of people do that.
Okay, so what the whole story was driving at is that these suspensions and subsequent forced pattern of driving after suspension, racking up new DAS charges, it disproportionately affects the poor, which makes sense because if you get a fine and you're rich, just fucking pay the fine. But if you're poor and you're living check to check,
my answer to that would be, don't speed. Pay attention when you're driving and stop at the stop sign. How hard is that?
Well, you have to couple that with the fact that although police will never admit that they do have official quotas, if you don't at least stop a few speeders or tag a few cars in your downtime, it looks like you're not doing shit when you're on duty in between calls.
I'm not going to understand that. They want to see you trying to enforce some traffic laws. I mean, that's part of their job, sorry to say.
But also, you get a few dick cops that just love to catch people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
The cop that pulled me over so many years ago tried using sarcasm on me, but that was before I really knew what sarcasm was, and she got even more mad at me, and that's why I think I got a ticket. Because she's just like, let me guess, there's a fire, and you're trying to beat the fire trucks to it. And I kind of look around, I was like, I didn't start the fire. Like, I didn't understand sarcasm.
It's a brilliant retort.
I just started driving when that happened, so like.
Also, it's a nice Billy Joel reference.
Cue the music.
Stuff and stuff. History and stuff. People, someone's name. History and sports. Big disaster, someone's name. Stuff and stuff. History, someone's name. Something I don't know. Famous guy, movie star, don't know who these people are. Stuff and history, yelling really loud at me. Okay, how's your fire coming?
Yeah. I, for one, got stopped a few years back. This is when I still lived in my apartment, and I was with my ex.
The Beast.
As I call her. You'll learn that term.
The Beast? The Beast. The Beast
and I are leaving a local establishment, and she had been drinking, and I don't drink, so I had none. But as soon as I pulled out of there, I saw a cop pull out of an adjoining lot and start following me. Well, it was only a half a mile to get home. I'm like, watch him fucking pull us over as we're turning into the lot for the apartment complex. Sure as shit, that's what happened. And as soon as he got up to the window, I handed him my license and insurance. I had it waiting out the window for him, just to be a dick. And I'm like, evening, officer. Hope you weren't searching for a DWI stop, because I haven't been drinking at all tonight. In fact, I don't drink whatsoever.
Holy shit!
He's like, okay. Are you aware that one of your headlamps is out? I'm like, you're kidding. He's like, yeah, this one up here. I'm like,
you're pulling me over for that?
It's because I was leaving a bar, and he was using that as justification to fish for a DUI.
Understandable. You know, I honestly, I could agree with that. I don't think that's too terrible.
So All I had to do was tap on the headlight and it came back on. So
Oh, yeah, one of those had like just wham. Just...
Yeah. Had to give it the old Fonzie. And he's like, so you haven't been drinking? I'm like, no. He's like, but she has. I'm like, oh, yeah. Yeah, so if you're smelling it, it's over there.
Okay. I had a friend who got pulled over one time. The chick in the backseat was of age, and she was the one drinking, but he got pulled over for speeding, and the officer actually gave him a breathalyzer, even though he hadn't been drinking. He was underage and everything. And he got the breathalyzer, and the cop's like, well, I smell alcohol. And his other friend in the front seat's like, yeah, that's her back there. But she didn't get a breathalyzer. He didn't even check her ID.
Yeah, sometimes you just get the wrong cop. Sometimes you get a nice cop that understands.
I've had nice cops.
But as easy as it is to write this off as a trivialized, don't do this, don't do that, because of my line of work, I see a number of people that have issues with their driving record. And what it seems to be is habitual recidivism, especially in driving after revocation or suspension or cancellation. Now, one thing to know about that is it clogs up the legal system. And in this story I read, it talked about Hennepin County has a ridiculous amount of driving after suspension cases, clogging up the court system when they could be paying more time and attention to serious, violent, or person-to-person crimes.
So are they just talking about suspending the fees?
They are looking at no longer suspending licenses for people that cannot pay the fees.
Okay, so what do they expect these people to do?
To just pay the fees eventually.
What if they don't?
Well, then it's a matter of going to jail for dodging your fine. I don't know.
Have you ever had a bill go to collections? I mean, is that what they're going to do?
It could be.
Oh, they could do that, couldn't they? Like, if you just rack up a debt and then you go to like buy a house or buy a car. No, you cannot do that until you pay off this debt. What's it called? Isn't that putting a lien?
They can put a
something?
lien on your
That's
mortgage if you owe money to somebody that's done repairs or something of that nature. Let's say a home exterior repair company charge you more money than you thought you were going to be charged. You're like, fuck you, I'm not paying that. And they put a lien against you. They had their lawyer send a letter saying we're putting a lien against your house. So you had to get that lien taken off before you could sell your house.
So maybe what the state could do is we'll put a lien on your car. You can't sell that or purchase a new one until you pay this fine.
It could be, or it could be what they typically do in a lot of situations is they take it out of your taxes. Say you're going to get a return. They're like,
yeah,
you still owe us. So too bad for you. We're taking it.
That'd be fine too.
But the point here is that these people that can't afford... Now, everybody in their driving days at one point has California rolled a stop sign. You don't come to a complete stop and wait for 1 Mississippi, 2 Mississippi.
Is it actually like the time you're supposed to stop?
Yeah. Yeah, I've been in a car before and the guy had a lead foot. And I was like, holy shit, he barely stopped at that stop. There's a fucking cop right there.
I've watched people just flat out run the stop sign and the cop didn't do anything.
Right. But when you force people to pick between their livelihood and breaking the law, well, if you don't get caught breaking the law, you're fine. But if you don't keep up with going to work and making money, you can't eat or afford shelter or health care.
No, yeah, that's when you first mentioned the headline for this. I was like, yeah, I was just like, obviously quit speeding, quit driving like an asshole, but I was completely against the state doing this. But the more we've talked about it, it's like, I can see that being a real issue for people just trying to survive. And I would open ideas like, well, they'll just take it out of your tax return or put a lien against your car so that you can't sell it or buy a new one until you pay the fine. Something like that would be better than making it impossible for somebody to live.
Well, it reminds me years ago where they came up with a new plan, like we're going to lower incarceration rates and we're just going to fine more people. And I thought to myself, well, you're only delaying the inevitable, because if they can't pay their fines or they don't pay their fines, then you're going to have to put a warrant for their arrest, and you're going to have to bring them through court again, and you're going to have to sentence them again for dodging fees or this, that, or the other.
Yeah.
Or crimes against administration. And they just send them to jail anyway. Yeah, fucking idiotic. Anyway, so if you don't suspend their license, they can keep legally driving. They can keep legally driving to work.
To earn money.
And maybe they can earn the money to pay the fine. So rather than then ding them the worst possible way. And I doubt a lot of first-time offenders lose their license. It all depends upon what you get, and I'm fine with leaving everything in place for, like, the drunk drivers, because that's just idiotic. You can easily avoid drunk driving by calling for a ride or not drinking.
Isn't there a lot of cab companies now that will do, like, half rate or even free cab rides for drunk people?
There are even car services that will come there with 2 drivers, one to drive you home and one to drive your car home.
Oh, I don't want anyone driving my car but me. That's a stick shift. Most people can't drive those nowadays.
Yeah, well, it's a lot easier than a fucking $12,000 in court and lawyer fees and going to jail.
But I mean, you've been around inebriated people. They
talk a lot of shit.
They talk a lot of shit. I mean, you got your mean drunks, which would be the talk a lot of shit, and then you got your happy drunks. And happy drunk will probably be like, hell yeah, here's my car, follow us. Or the mean drunks are probably going to be, I could imagine, completely against anyone else driving their car.
For what? Arresting me for what? I'm not allowed to stand up for myself? I thought this was America. Huh? Isn't this America? I'm sorry, I thought this was America.
Well, the argument they make, like I said, about it clogging the courts. You could take all these off the court calendar. All these people wouldn't have to, use public defenders or maybe hire a lawyer for dumb shit. You wouldn't have all these suspended licenses. Maybe you might lose out on reinstatement fees, but you're saving on the cost of all these people in the system. So I figure it's going to be a break-even situation. It's smart.
Yeah. No, yeah, I think it's definitely worth a try and see what happens.
I wrote the phrase, it results in excessive recidivism. Say you get your license suspended. Then you get busted driving on a suspended license. Now you're on probation. You get busted again. You violated probation. So say that you got your driving offense in Hennepin County and then another one in Ramsey County. Well, you did time on the DAS in Hennepin County, but to get the new one in Ramsey County violates the terms of your Hennepin County probation. So you'll do time for Ramsey, and hopefully they'll run them concurrent, not consecutively, because it would suck balls to go from Ramsey County Jail to Hennepin County Jail for a fucking DAS, but I guarantee you it has happened before. It's just a waste of time. I've seen people that get a new charge that violates a probation, and because of that probation violation in County A, County B goes, well, you got a probation violation in County A, which violates your probation here in County B. It's just this back and forth, never-ending fucking pattern. That's why, or that's another aspect of how our criminal justice system is broken. Once they get their hooks in you, they got it in you. And extended probation and all, you got to go to this, you got to do that, you got to do this, that, and the other. All these probationary terms.
They need to go back to laws and jail stuff like back in the Wild Wild West.
Which is?
Well, it's just far more simplified.
Yeah, there's a lot of bullshit.
Well, you're going to sit in here for 2 days because you stole somebody's horse, and then we're going to let you out and don't ever come back to my town again.
Well, I think a lot of people that are first time caught up in the system don't realize you go to jail and then you go before a judge. That's your first appearance. You're either guilty or not guilty. You enter a plea.
Okay.
At that time, you could possibly get bail, or they might, depending upon your crime and your history, say, okay, well, you're going to have a second hearing for me to determine whether or not you're eligible for bail. So you might sit. And then after they give you bail or no bail, say they don't give you any bail. Well, then you're sitting waiting for jury selection. Then you have your trial. After you have your trial, you're waiting for the jury's deliberation to give their verdict to the judge to rule. And then after you get that ruling, then you still sit in jail waiting for your fucking sentence. And until you get your sentence and then get transported to prison or a local facility that's associated with that system, your sentence doesn't start. They might give you credit for all that time served, or they might say, fuck you. All these different hurdles to jump just to get to the point of serving your actual sentence. You could go before a judge 3 to 4 times just before you actually, if you're going to prison, get sent out to the starter prison out in St. Cloud. And from St. Cloud, they see what you're like, and they assess you, and then they go off of your felony points, and they go off of your types of offenses, and then you either go to Lino, Moose Lake, Rochester, Stillwater,
I was gonna say,
Oak Park
Stillwater has a
Heights.
prison.
It's a lot of shit to deal with. So people that are getting their license suspended, they've never been in trouble. Let's say, just hypothetically speaking, somebody has like a teenage daughter, gets a couple of speeding tickets because she's not used to driving, gets her license suspended, doesn't have the money for the fines, tries to hide it from her parents, gets caught driving again on that suspended license. So now this is someone who's caught up in the system.
Mm-hmm.
And we'll say that just for argument's sake, they're 18, so the court doesn't need to communicate any of this shit to the parents. Well, already at 18, you're in the system, and you're that far down the rut trying to dig yourself out.
For a simple, I couldn't pay the fine.
Right.
No, that's messed up. This kind of system and everything, it should be for more of the hardcore criminals, the drug dealers, the rapists, and assault people, assault and rob. It should be for those people. It shouldn't be for somebody who just can't afford to pay a fine on a moving violation.
Runs a red light late at night, rolls a stop sign without coming to a complete stop, gets a few speeding tickets. If it's, reason. I'm not saying like people that are driving like Adrian Peterson getting busted going 50 miles an hour over the speed limit.
Yeah.
Shit like that. So I think it's a very wise decision for lawmakers to do this, to take more people out of the system and then treat them less like criminals and more like human beings. It's more of a slap on the wrist. Nobody needs to be treated like a hard criminal, because if you do go serve time for that suspended license violation, you get suspended, you drive on it, you get arrested again, you go to for real jail. You could be housed in a cell with somebody that's in there for something horrendous. Like, say, for instance, years ago in Sherburne County Jail, where a guy that I believe was in there for a simple drunk driving or regular driving offense was housed in a cell or was put in proximity of someone that was in there for a more serious violent crime and got beat to death with a handle from a shower.
Wow.
Right. That happened. Google that shit.
Who would have thought? That's an embarrassing way to die.
It is. It is. You're in jail for some idiotic reason, then you get beat to death by somebody who's in there who's a real criminal.
What's the matter? Was he not hardcore enough for the real criminal?
I don't know, but it's just, if we can keep more kind of low-level offenders out of there for podunk reasons, I think it would serve our criminal justice system a lot better in terms of financing and sheer incarceration numbers because of the costs of keeping people behind bars. So I give this plan 2 big thumbs up.
Yeah, I'd like to see what their proposal is for dealing with the fines further down the road, because that'd be interesting. It could start a new trend across the whole country. Or are there other states that already do this, do you know?
I didn't read the entire story because you need to have a subscription to Star Tribune to read all the news on their website now.
Oh, okay.
Been that way for a while. So you just kind of can scroll and see enough to keep up on what's going on.
Okay.
Yeah. Interact with the show on Twitter at, what do we call it? That is at, what do we call it? You can find us on Facebook at facebook.com/group/what do we call it podcast show. For the What Do We Call It podcast, I'm Jmann.
And I'm number 2 fan Tom.
And that's the end.